Guys, what's up? So this has happened at last. This is episode 2. This is Biscuit Week. The first challenge is for the contestants to make 24 sandwich biscuits. They should be 2 separate biscuits, neatly sandwiched, together with a flavoursome filling of their choice. It should complement your style of biscuit. They have 2 hours and 15 minutes to make them. Paul says the signature bake this week is a devilishly difficult challenge. They have to make 48 biscuits to make 24 sandwich biscuits, so they have to think about how they bake them, so that they are both equally sized and equally coloured at the same time. Prue says one of the risks is that the filling will be too soft when you get the biscuits between your teeth. Out comes, for example, the lemon curd or the buttercream. Paul says if you combine a hard biscuit with a soft interior, it will go all over your lap. Liam is making a pecan and malt biscuit. He explains whenever he goes to a diner, he always gets a malt and chocolate milkshake. Noel says it reminds him of the 50s, Back to the Future. He was inspired to get into baking 4 years ago, watching his mother. He is sandwiching coffee buttercream between pecan and malt shortbread. Prue says that they used to be given malt as it was good for you after the war. When flavour is added, the texture of the biscuits can change as a consequence. They explain that too many wet or dry ingredients added can drastically alter the bite of the biscuit. Julia is making a pistachio and cardamom biscuit with vanilla and rose water jelly. This is a very strong combination of flavours, so we'll have to wait to see how they pair together. They move on to see Stephen. He is making an Amarpressi biscuit with coffee buttercream and topped with ground coffee and almonds. Paul asks what has gone into the mixture. Stephen replies semolina flour. He says it gives it a soft and chewy texture. Jan is making a peanut butter cookie with banana cream filling. She is using one of her scientific tricks where she rolls them in caster sugar so that when it bakes it will rise, and when you take it out it will fall and it will leave a nice crack texture on its appearance. We then follow on to see that several of the bakers are piping biscuits. Stephen, James and Tom have given themselves more work by piping the biscuits and then chilling every single biscuit. James has drawn a stencil to give him an accurate guide. James is making his take of a Viennese whirl with rhubarb curd, vanilla buttercream and custard powder. They move on to Tom, who is making 2 pipe biscuits filled with alternating amaretto liqueur cream and chocolate ganache. It's supposed to be like a higher end biscuit, and because it's involving both cream and chocolate, means the flavour pairings tend to work well together. Flo is making a gin jam buttercream using raspberries to fill 2 shortbread biscuits shaped like slices of bread. Prue asks, do you think you will have any gin flavour at all as you are boiling it in the jam? You will have lost all the alcohol. Flo then says she will put some gin in the buttercream. And Prue replies, that's clever. However, Flo isn't the only one to use alcohol in her bake. Chris is making a whiskey and orange filling, which will sit between chocolate biscuits made with chia seed and more whiskey. Prue says, we know you are good with flavour, and says that we all know those flavours work together. Chris replies, saying, it won't be in-your-face whiskey, you'll get a more subtle hint of it. Sophie is making a limoncello sandwich biscuit with curd filling consisting of lemon zest and yuzu. This is basically a Japanese lemon. It's going to have a very citrusy, tangy flavour to it, making it very tart. Stacey is making a sparkly chocolate and marshmallow fluff cookie, and the outside will be dusted with edible glitter. Paul says, I'm not quite sure I want that metallic flavour in my mouth. Stacey replies and says that because she is the only woman in her household, this is the only way I kind of get to kind of enjoy glitter. it's through her bakes. We then move on to see Yan is weighing out her biscuit dough. She says so long as she has it round, gravity and science will take care of it. I don't think that's how gravity works, but we'll see about it later. Now, both Kate and Flo have gone the extra mile. They have made their own individual shape cutters. Flo has made hers from a corned beef tin, and Kate has found a round mould that she has placed in a bench vise. Now we move on to Kate. She is making a coconut seashell filled with coconut rum cream and pineapple curd. These are very tropical flavours, and they tend to work quite well together. So in that respect, they tend to be quite a safe option as a bake, although I think the trickiness will be in the piping and maintaining the shape of the biscuits. The narration, they explain they only have access to one oven, so the contestants will have to perfectly time their bakes and prepare new batches for the oven simultaneously. Therefore, they have to be very vigilant on how long they're baking their biscuits, so that they're evenly cooked. With only a matter of a minute or two to go, Kate realises that she has no time left to decorate the rest of her seashells, so she has to create a bit of a rush job and to just put them on the plate as best she can. As you can see, she's using a almost like a stool as a decoration box. As you can see here, for some strange reason, Tom is receiving help from several people. These are Stephen, Stacey and James to finish. I don't understand why they're doing this. The whole point is for it to be a competition. I understand it's a very friendly-based competition, but still, you're all given the same amount of time, you're given the ingredients you ask for, and you've had time to practice this particular bake. In doing too much, he's made it so that it's incredibly difficult to finish within the time, and perhaps if he'd managed his time better, he wouldn't have been in this type of situation. I feel in part sorry for the other bakers, including Liam, who seems to be looking on, as he's had no help, and nor have the others, and the fact that the other three have had the time to go out their way and help Tom is actually a detriment to themselves. Not only are they weakening their position within the competition, but the fact that they finished as early as they have means that they could have done more with their biscuits, and potentially this could go against them later on in the competition. Naturally, with the number of biscuits they made, and obviously they would have created additional ones as spares in case any of the other ones look particularly ugly, they have more than enough to go around. So, as you can see in this picture, between Flo and Liam, they are preparing to exchange their leftover biscuits to allow each other to taste. Now it's judgment time. The first baker up is Liam, with his coffee malted pecan shorties. Paul explains that they are all uniform, the same colour, and there are 24 of them. They say it is a bit squishy though, the texture of the biscuits. Prue says, from a flavour point of view, you get a milk kick, a coffee kick, and that is really good. Paul says the flavours are good, but they are too chunky. He jokes, because Liam is still a student, him acting like a teacher, see me. They then move on to James with his rhubarb and custard whirls. Prue says you have made 24 almost identical biscuits. A couple nearer the edges was seen to be slightly damaged or misshapen. She says they are very delicious. I'm getting vanilla, certainly getting rhubarb. Paul says he didn't get the custard, but since he was using vanilla, it gave him the sensation of rhubarb and custard. He says that the biscuit is fantastic. As you can see from the display itself, they look very much like Viennese swirls, and have done what he wants to achieve from them. They then move on to Chris with his chocolate Chia seed biscuits with a biscuit caramel filling. Paul says it's very rich, bitter chocolate with strong whiskey coming at the end. Prue says the whiskey is too much. It has the concentration of a chocolate truffle. This obviously means perhaps the whiskey hasn't been cooked enough and has simply just been poured straight into the mix. They move on to Jan's Miss Marion's PB&B biscuits. They explain they don't look absolutely perfect, even no denying the banana. Paul says if the cream filling would have set, it would have been a fantastic biscuit. Unfortunately, because it hasn't set, it kind of went over him slightly when it was biting down in the biscuit. They move on to Flo's Gin Jam biscuits. Prue says the filling looks a little squashy. Paul says the biscuit is too hard, you have overworked the dough. Prue says there is no gin flavour, but the raspberry jam is wonderful. This means that she's obviously overcooked the gin and therefore cooked out the alcohol. And also, obviously, though Flo said she'd put gin in the buttercream itself, that was clearly not enough to taste. They move on to Stephen's Amarpressi biscuits. Prue says she loves that chewy middle with a crisp outer layer. Paul says the only problem is the slight irregularity in size. This might be because the semolina flour might react slightly differently to other flours. But he explains that the flavours and the texture of the almond and the coffee together with a slight chewiness and a bite is perfect. They move on to Kate's coconut shells for a Titanic afternoon tea. Paul says the seashells are a bit dodgy. He says they are so tough, it's like the biscuit is looking out for a fight. Prue agrees that it's too tough, but says it's a story of two halves. She explains the pineapple in there is delicious with its flavour. They then move on to Stacey's sparkling chocolate and marshmallow fluff cookies. Prue says she thinks they look amazing. Paul says you have consistency, they all look neatly filled, but I always get a little bit concerned with that amount of glitter. He says it tastes great, crispy on the outside, soft and cookie-like on the inside, and the marshmallow has set beautifully, so that when you bite into it, it doesn't pour out. Prue says that with the amount of sugar on the coating of the biscuit, it was clever not to add too much to the biscuit mix. Paul says, for a biscuit, you have ticked all the boxes, and he says, well done. They move on to Julia's Middle Eastern Delight sandwich biscuits. Paul says they are a little bit scruffy. Prue says they are very different, but because everything is too strong, it's too much. Paul says you have this mix of rose water and cardamom, which isn't particularly pleasant, but credits her for being daring. And they have a little play with the biscuit. When they push it slightly, it wobbles very much like a jelly, and so does not consist of a traditional biscuit as we know. Move on to Sophie's Limoncino sandwich biscuits. Prue says you were asked for 24 absolutely identical biscuits, and I think you might have hit it. Paul says they look incredibly sharp, clean lines, distinction between the two lines, that's delicious. As Paul takes a mouthful, he says, you can't really taste the limoncello, you just get a beautiful citrus flavour. Prue says, beautifully cooked, wonderfully tart, and says, what's not to like? The last baker to be assessed is Tom with his coffee and amaretto kisses. Paul says he likes the look of them. The bakes are good. He thinks the size of the biscuits are good. Paul says the cream is very rich in chocolate and the amaretto flavour is delicious. Prue says the biscuit dough is a triumph. So that's all of the bakes judged. Which do you guys think was your particular favourite? Which one would you have liked if you were in the judge's position? Which of them do you think you would have hated? What do you think of the fact that Tom actively cheated during the end of the bake? I know it was simply more of a case of just setting them together and putting them on the plates, but any aspect of help outside of what is allowed should be unacceptable, and there should have been perhaps a slight reminder, not a full-on warning, but a reminder that this is a competition, and therefore you should be focusing on your own bakes. Do you think, as well, because Stacey, Stephen and James actively helped them, that they should also receive perhaps a little bit of a warning? As always, I look forward to hearing what you guys think of this. Please leave your comments down below. Make sure to like the video. Please subscribe for more of these reviews. Click the bell for notifications. And as always, thank you for taking the time to watch the video.